Right. Hey guys, so something that I think is really funny that I was looking into while preparing this sermon is this idea of celebrities changing their names. So I looked up some examples that I thought are pretty entertaining. There's John Legend. His name was once John Roger Stevens. So there's John Legend and John Roger Stevens. Nice to meet you. There's also Joaquin Phoenix. His last name used to be Bottom. Joaquin Bottom. That is tough. That is really tough. I would change my last name too. Then there's also Whoopi Goldberg. What a fun name. It at one point was Karen Elaine Johnson. So like kind of neat. Again, like nice to meet you, Karen. But like Whoopi Goldberg, that's fun. Maybe you guys have ever like wished for a different name. You know, I know sometimes with a particularly common name, it's easy to wish you had a name that's like more distinct. And maybe like the celebrities I mentioned, you might just wish for a flashier name or one that better represents who you believe you are. And so my story that I'm reading is from Ruth, and it's about Naomi, and she did not like her name. And so a little bit of context, Naomi was the mother-in-law of Ruth. She was from Israel, and she went to Moab with her husband and her sons, where her sons got married, and then her husband and her sons died. So she's got her two daughter-in-laws, and they're going back to Israel. And it's really interesting to see how she responds to the people as they begin talking to her when she comes back to Israel. So in Ruth chapter 1, verses 20 through 21, it says, "Don't call me Naomi," she told them, "call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me." So a couple of things. Clearly here, she does not like her name. She's trying to change her identity, trying to change her name. And I did some research into the name Naomi and the name Mara. So just track with me as I kind of explain some of those. But Naomi means my delight. And the root for that word is a Hebrew word, noam. And so noam is used all throughout the Old Testament in a lot of different circumstances. But one of the ways that I really like where it's used is in Psalm 27:4. The verse says, "This only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple." That word beauty is the word noam, which is the same root as the name Naomi. So we see that it's used as a way to describe the beauty of the Lord and the beauty of Naomi, which is fascinating to me. However, Naomi doesn't want that name anymore. She wants to be called Mara, and the root of the word Mara is the word mar. It's also used all throughout the Old Testament. The first time it's used that I found was in Exodus. So they go to the bitter waters of Mara. They're not able to drink those waters at all until God does a miracle and heals them. It also says the word Mara is also used in Genesis to describe how Esau wept bitterly when Jacob stole his birthright. Mara is also used 4 times in the book of Job to describe the bitterness that Job felt about his suffering. So all this shows that Naomi really, really felt this bitterness. It was something that she truly identified with. And it's something that she was kind of aligning herself with these other people of faith throughout the scriptures where they had aligned themselves with bitterness as well. But the only problem with this was that it wasn't up to Naomi to name herself. It wasn't up to her to decide her identity. And so if we go back to the text, this is probably one of my favorite verses in the Bible because I think it's hilarious. I think it's really funny. So back to Ruth 1:21 through 22. It says, "I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me." So Naomi returned from Moab, accompanied by Ruth. I think this is hilarious because she goes to this whole thing of like, "Don't call me Naomi, call me Mara. I'm bitter. This is who I am now." And then the text in the next verse says, "So Naomi." It doesn't stick. It doesn't stick at all. This idea of like, "Yeah, I'm Mara now." No. God's like, "No, you're Naomi." I think it's hilarious. And I want to contrast that to the other times where God changes people's names in the Bible. You think about Abram was changed to Abraham, and most of the time we don't even remember that he was ever named Abram. Or you think about the idea of how God changed Saul to Paul, and the new creation of Paul just absolutely changed the world. Or even Jacob the deceiver was changed to Israel, and the whole nation of Israel is known as God's chosen people. So what does this mean for us? Basically, when God renames someone, it sticks. And when we try to rename ourselves, it doesn't. So don't try to rename yourself. Don't let life and pain and circumstances happening to you change who God has created you to be. God names you his child. He names you my delight, like Naomi. He says that you're loved, and he doesn't want us to define ourselves by our pain and our shame and our fear and all the things that we go through and the things that even maybe the brokenness that we do. And then one last thing. Don't forget that God is redeeming our pain. It's what he does throughout the whole Bible, and it's what he does in the book of Ruth. We come back to Naomi's story in Ruth chapter 4, 15 through 17. We read about how her daughter-in-law Ruth gets married to Boaz. She has a new son, and we get to see that redemption in Naomi's life. Obviously, a big part of it too is we learn that Ruth and Boaz's son is actually in the line of King David and eventually Jesus. But for Naomi, it just means that she has a son. So it says in Ruth 4, 15 through 17a, it says, "He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age, for your daughter-in-law, Ruth, who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons, has given him birth." Then Naomi took the child in her arms and cared for him. The women living there said, "Naomi has a son." So I'm going to pray us out, and thanks for listening. Okay. Jesus, thank you so much for today, God. Thank you for the identity that you give to us as your beloved, as your children that you love, Lord. I pray that you will help us to seek you always, in the hard times and the good times, to put what you say about us above what we feel and what we think about ourselves, God. I pray that we will lean into the identity that you've given us, God, and not lean into the pain that we feel. In your name, amen.